Hey everybody, Dugan Kelley from Kelley Clarke. Listen, if you're raising capital under Regulation D, you're doing private placement memorandums, or you're thinking about doing private offerings, there are some big moves potentially at the Securities and Exchange Commission in 2025 that you need to know about. These changes could affect how you structure, verify, and disclose your private offerings. I'm going to walk you through what we consider, this is our opinion, my opinion, the five key things for you to watch this year, the remainder of this year, and headed into 2026 so you can stay compliant, avoid surprises, and maybe even gain some flexibility. All right. So, one, changes to the accredited investor definition. So, this has been floating around for a long time. Those of you that follow what happens at the Securities and Exchange Commission or even at the state commissions, the state securities boards around the country have been trying to follow and trying to glean from some of the reports coming out. Is the SEC or Congress going to change what qualifies for an accredited investor? Are they going to boost the limits up to, I even heard something like $10 million or something like that? I don't think so, but the SEC and Congress are exploring modifications so that wealth alone isn't the only path. That would be a pleasant surprise and a good one, right? So right now, the accredited investor definition is heavily on net worth and liquidity, which it should be, but there should be some other paths associated with this. So we may see some testing or additional educational requirements like we've seen in prior years, where if you had a securities license, certainly you could qualify as an accredited investor. So why this matters, if this definition of what an accredited investor shifts, you need to have a different investor verification process, or you might be able to access more investors under Reg D if they qualify. So stay tuned. There might be something on the horizon in this. Number two, what are we looking for this coming for the rest of the year and potentially headed into 2026? More flexible exempt offering pathways, I think. The Securities and Exchange Commission's regulatory flexibility agenda for the spring of 2025 included a proposal to update the exempt offering pathways, right? To make it better and more streamlined so that you could get more private equity into the system to actually be able to do additional deals. So the streamlining of Reg D, possibly Section 4A2 or other exemptions. So what to watch? Proposed rulemaking scheduled by and around April 2026. This could reduce compliance burdens, but with flexibility often comes risk. So you ought to make sure that you're up to snuff, that your team players know exactly what they should be doing, what they shouldn't be doing, and how to modify your current regulatory framework. Number three, guidance and verification under Rule 506C. We saw a no action letter come out recently from the Securities and Exchange Commission that basically said that if you have higher minimum investments, for example, $200,000 for individuals or $1 million for entities, that may allow you the ability to do self-verification, which means that investment would be more suitable for those individuals, and you wouldn't have to go through that independent verification process, right? Verification is often a facts and circumstance test. The required steps depend on how clearly someone qualifies, how much info you have, and how large their investment is. And that's often can provide a stumbling block, particularly if you're doing 506C offerings where general solicitation is allowed, but independent verification of the accredited nature of the investor is also required. So those loosening up of those regulatory frameworks, super important for you to keep abreast of. Number four, the heightened Securities and Exchange examination and enforcement in focused areas. Their 2025 exam priorities show where the agency is going to focus scrutiny. For Reg D private offerings, relevant areas include disclosures, valuation practices, especially for illiquid assets, fees and expenses, marketing materials, conflict of interest, and whether their practices match what's promised. So if you're a syndicator, a sponsor, a deal person, to put together that puts together those offering materials. You need to watch out and make sure that you're doing what is required from a compliance perspective. How you value illiquid assets like real estate and private placements is certainly important because examiners are going to be looking at that. The accuracy of your fee allocations and the disclosures to your investors, including both at the fund level and investment level, are super important. And whether you market, meaning you're marketing returns, risk, liquidity, if that aligns with reality and investor expectations, you can expect the SEC to be looking at those areas. And the fifth one that we're looking at this area in this for the rest of 2025 headed into 2026 is disclosure rationalization and materiality changes. The SEC is considering reforms to the disclosure regime, including what counts as material, right? Is all of your disclosures a material disclosure? Well, there has been a tightening of the belt here, so to speak, and how disclosures can be simplified. That's a deregulatory tone under the current agenda, which may mean that there's more leeway in what you disclose or how far you need to go. But for conservatively, make sure, remember, material disclosures always need to be included in your offering documents, your PPMs, your subscription agreements. Are they up to date with what you believe is material? You may need to adjust what your compliance framework is in order to remain compliant. You may see less required disclosure in some areas, but don't over reduce. Missing something material is a big enforcement risk for a lot of you. So keeping tabs on upcoming rule proposals or staff guidance will often help you adapt your documents and your practices in advance. So that's what we're watching over here at Kelley Clarke. 5 key areas this SEC is likely to move on this year for Reg D, 506B, or 506C offerings. If you're doing this kind of capital raise, that's what you should do now, right? Here's what you should do now. Review your investor verification processes and make sure they still hold up under tighter scrutiny. Update or audit your disclosures, valuation methods, and fee schedules, and particularly for illiquid assets like real estate when you're using that general solicitation under 506C offerings. And then obviously monitor the Securities and Exchange rule proposals and the guidance, especially around materiality, disclosure rationalization, and exempt offering pathways. So you can make proactive changes so that you can stay ahead of the curve and you can remain compliant. For those of you that love commercial real estate, that we love commercial real estate and are out there hunting for deals, hope all is well. Happy hunting. God bless.